A significant and potentially severe tropical cyclone is materialising in the Coral Sea at this time. Queensland is on notice for a cyclone impact. Here is a look at Invest 92p, your latest update brought to you by Force 13 Australia and Oceania. Subscribe if you haven't yet and leave a like on this video if you do end up enjoying it. But 92p is staring down Queensland right now as a potentially significant, maybe even severe tropical cyclone. It will likely get the name of Cyclone Jasper over the next coming days as it moves towards Queensland. So here's a look at the tropical cyclone genesis map. A 90% chance of development at this time. It's wrapping itself up quite nicely now. I find it hard to believe that this storm will not develop. Basically, this is looking like it is going to be a pretty significant tropical cyclone threat for the Coral Sea and for Queensland. Probably a direct landfall between Townsville and maybe northern Gympie, Hervey Bay, that sort of region. Over the next sort of 10 days or so. But right now, the main impacts are going to be for the Solomon Islands and Coral Sea territories. So here's a look at the multi-model diagnostics for 92p as it is known internationally right now. You can see that the storm is expected to become significant, with winds likely going to peak at around 100 knots plus as per the GFS model guidance. Both HWRF and the GFS are calling for a Category 3 major hurricane equivalent system. That could be a Category 3 or 4 strength system on the Australian scale, basically set in stone at this point as it traverses the Coral Sea around 5 days out from now. Wind shear remaining low, sea surface temperatures high, and mid-level humidity good for this system. So a strong storm is expected. That is the headline of this video. Here's a look at the GFS model run right now. You can see the storm over the next 60 hours wrapping itself up over the Solomon Islands. It will then rapidly intensify, attaining gale force winds around the center of the system. It will become a widespread system, a very large system in terms of gales, extending quite far out from the center before becoming quite compact and making a landfall on what looks like Rockhampton at this time as a significant, potentially severe tropical cyclone. Winds likely going to be in excess of around 70 to 80 knots sustained at the time of landfall, with peak gusts probably approaching 120 knots. That is sustained winds in excess of 150 kilometers an hour and peak gusts in excess of 250 kilometers an hour. That is a potentially destructive, severe tropical cyclone expected anywhere between Townsville and Hervey Bay. So watch out if you are in the coastal regions of central Queensland. This is going to be a very rough time for you, probably in around 10 days or so from now, if these model guidances materialize. I'm choosing to show the ECMWF model right now. This is a weaker solution for this storm. I don't think that it's going to materialize like this, but it's good to get a full picture of the scope. This is the solution that we want to happen if any of these solutions are going to happen. We're looking at a pretty weak sort of Category 1, Category 2 cyclone in the Coral Sea, probably wrapping itself up to become a Category 3 at peak intensity before sort of paralleling the Queensland coast for a little bit, moving towards the Queensland coast, and then it will rapidly weaken and die off and become this extratropical mess offshore from Hervey Bay sort of area. Nonetheless, though, significant wave heights will be a problem for Queensland if that solution materializes. So significant wave heights are going to be a problem for the storm, for the coastline regardless. Let's take a look at rainfall. Significant rainfall totals expected as well over the Solomon Islands. Those pinks, more than 250 millimeters of rain. Isolated totals of up to 500 millimeters of rain outside of Honiara expected. Those blues, up to 500 millimeters of rain extending over the Rockhampton sort of area as this storm makes landfall. This is from the GFS, by the way, so again, fairly reliable, I would say, in my opinion and my analysis. This storm is going to be a very wet system where the core of the storm is. However, because it's going to be in a little bit of dry air at this point, it will likely not be a widespread rainmaker. It will just be a concentrated, very wet system as it makes landfall. But let's jump into the multi-model diagnostics right now and see what is happening with the other models on windy.com. Alright, so jumping straight into the multi-model diagnostics here with windy.com. Looking at the current picture right now, Monday 12 p.m. local time, about 4 p.m. over in the Solomon Islands, where this low pressure system is developing into what will become most likely Tropical Cyclone Jasper. Centered over the Solomon Islands right now, around 10 degrees north. You can see it is bringing gale force winds, especially around the southern side of it here, south of Honiara down to the more southern islands of the Solomon Islands. But again, significant winds are wrapping around the northern side of the storm as well, around 20 knots, gusting around 30. On the southern side, we're looking at winds probably around 30 to 35 knots sustained, and these are only going to get stronger with time. So you can see here the storm intensifying as we get into around Tuesday evening local time. We're going to see this storm probably undergo tropical cyclone genesis. Winds around the northern side picking up to around 40 knots. It will most likely get named around Wednesday as these winds really wrap themselves around. This is a strong storm to be centered over the Solomon Islands, that's for for sure. A very significant system, and I'm surprised that it's holding itself together so well, considering how strong the winds are and how mountainous the terrain is on the Solomon Islands. You can see as we play this run through, again, winds holding around that 30 to 40 knot sustained strength. Again, this is certainly a tropical cyclone at this point. Wednesday morning, this will be Tropical Cyclone Jasper, and then it will start to move into the tropical waters of the Coral Sea, and this is where intensification will definitely start to kick off. Rapid intensification is on the cards here. It will probably be more of a gradual strengthening process throughout Wednesday, Thursday, and then into Friday. You can see around Thursday midday from the ECWF run, we're looking at around 50 knot winds sustained. Gusts will probably be a little bit higher at around 70 knots. This is definitely a Category 1 tropical cyclone approaching Category 2 status here. Category 2 status most likely going to be attained Friday morning local time, winds of around 60 to 65 knots. This approaching Category 1 status, hurricane strength on the Saffir-Simpson scale. That central pressure starting to really rapidly drop Friday, winds around 70 knots, and this is only going to strengthen as it approaches the south central Queensland coastline. Into Saturday, this storm's going to start wrapping itself up. We're probably looking at a severe tropical cyclone at this time. Very, very significant conditions throughout the Coral Sea at this point as a result of this cyclone, which will most likely be called Cyclone Jasper. The GFS has a far more worrying solution, that's for sure. We're looking at a very strong tropical cyclone, a central pressure of 942 millibars, and continuing to drop as well as it moves into the Coral Sea, 939, 940 millibars. This storm is going to be very strong indeed. Rapid intensification throughout Friday and into Saturday. We could be looking at a Category 4, even a Category 5 cyclone at this point. Thankfully, the GFS is notorious for really upplaying these systems, but it's something that we're going to have to watch nonetheless. Significant wind gusts in the center of the storm, probably going to be approaching 100 to 115 knots. That's up to 200 kilometers an hour at this time. Very destructive winds likely to occur throughout the Coral Sea Islands. Significant waves are going to be a very big problem from this system as well, especially with the GFS solution. The stronger this storm gets and the more widespread the storm's wind field is, the larger the waves that we're going to see. And we could be seeing south central Queensland pummeled with wave heights up to around 10 meters, especially into Saturday, Sunday, and Monday next week. Boating is going to be very dangerous for all areas, basically up to Cairns, across to Port Moresby, and down to New Caledonia. This is going to be a very widespread situation. Very strong waves, very big waves are going to be expected throughout the Coral Sea, that's for sure. A very significant tropical cyclone is set to materialize here. We could be seeing a very strong cyclone move ashore on Queensland sometime early to mid next week. Winds probably going to be approaching in the Category 3 strength mark, and it could make landfall anywhere between Townsville right down to around Gympie or Bundaberg. As you saw earlier with the model solutions, the GFS expecting a direct landfall probably around the Rockhampton area. This could be one of the strongest cyclones to impact the region since Cyclone Debbie of 2017, almost 7 years ago. This situation is going to be very serious. There's really no two ways about it. Sea surface temperatures around the center of this system going to be sky high, that's for sure. 28 degrees Celsius. That is plenty of fuel for this system to become a very significant tropical cyclone. That would sustain Category 5 status on the Saffir-Simpson scale, which would be a very destructive cyclone indeed. I don't think this storm's going to get to Category 5 status. That's really quite a peak that this storm would have to attain, and it will be on its way out as it heads towards Queensland. The combination of wind shear and the dropping sea surface temperatures, the storm will certainly be on its way out. So a Category 2 or 3 strength system is most likely going to be the solution impacting at the Queensland coastline. Nonetheless, that is a very strong system and a very destructive one indeed, but it's going to have ample time and fuel to rapidly intensify in the Coral Sea and become a potentially significant to major tropical cyclone, that's for sure. Rainfall total is going to be sky high as well from this system. We could be seeing rainfall over the Solomon Islands approach sort of half a metre of rain, 250 to 500 millimetres of rain, especially on Honiara. We could be seeing rainfall totals approach 500 millimetres. The Access G3 is a far more worrying solution for rainfall, up to 700 millimetres of rain in the more mountainous terrain, especially on Honiara or around Honiara. So flash flooding expected from this system as well. But yeah, all in all, very significant rainfall totals expected. Offshore, up to a metre of rainfall could fall. And again, if this lands itself on one of these islands here, we could be seeing some devastating flooding impacts. Vanuatu won't be escaping it either. Luganville could be seeing up to 100 millimetres of rain. And also down in the southern reaches of Papua New Guinea, we could be seeing up to 50 to 100 millimetres of rain, which could fall pretty fast, that's for sure. In the next 5 days, not much rainfall is expected for Queensland. However, beyond 5 to 10 days, we could be seeing a very significant amount of rainfall rainfall fall on the Queensland coastline. Up to and beyond 500 millimetres could be expected, that's for sure. So a major tropical cyclone threat, that's for sure, for Queensland right now. It's a threat. We're not under any warnings yet, so make sure you are prepared. Just be prepared for this system. But right now, it is not going to be a major issue, at least not the next week or so. But beyond that, we could be seeing a significant tropical cyclone track towards Queensland. So make sure you are staying updated with the latest on the Force 13 network, Force 13 Australia, and also on the Force 13 main channel as well. Check out our outlets, our merchandise store, become a Patreon, do all of the promotional stuff. But that's all from us, and I'll catch you all in the next storm. Goodbye.